Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I want to talk to you today about something deep, something powerful, something that we often overlook: God's plan for you. Yes, you. Every single one of you sitting here today has been placed on this earth for a purpose. There's no accident, no coincidence, and no random event that brought you here. You are a part of a divine design, and God's plan for you is real, powerful, and filled with potential. But that plan, it requires your action. It requires your faith. It requires you to rise up and embrace it. From the moment you opened your eyes and took your first breath, there was purpose flowing through your veins. I need you to understand something right now. Your life is not a mistake. I don't care what you've been told, what you've gone through, or what your circumstances look like today. I don't care how many times you've failed, how many doors have slammed in your face, or how many times you've been knocked down. You're not here by accident. You see, before you even existed in this world, God had already mapped out your journey. He knew the exact moment you'd be born, the family you'd come into, the struggles you'd face, and the triumphs you'd achieve. He knew every detail, and still He chose you. Think about that for a second. Out of all the possibilities, out of all the paths that could have been taken, He crafted one just for you. He gave you talents. He gave you a voice. He gave you a vision. You didn't come into this world just to exist, to float by, or to blend in. You came here to make a difference. There's a purpose to every breath you take. And sure, maybe you've made mistakes. Maybe you've taken some wrong turns, and maybe you've stumbled more times than you can count. But guess what? None of that disqualifies you from God's plan. None of that changes the fact that your life has value. Every misstep, every setback is simply a part of your process. Because even in your lowest moments, God is still working. He's shaping you, molding you, preparing you for something greater. He doesn't waste any part of your life, not the pain, not the joy, not the confusion. Every part has a purpose. So when you doubt yourself, when the world tries to convince you that you don't matter, that you're not good enough, that you'll never make it, you need to remind yourself of this truth: you are here for a reason. God placed you in this time, in this place, with these experiences, because there's something in you that the world needs. There's a light inside you that no one else can carry. There's a story inside you that no one else can tell. And that story is still being written. Your life is not a mistake. It's a masterpiece in the making. Let me ask you something. Do you know who you are? I'm not talking about your name, where you're from, or what you do for a living. I'm asking about your true identity, the essence of who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, you'll let the world tell you who to be. You'll drift, you'll chase, you'll conform, and you'll settle for less than what you were meant for. You are not just a product of your environment. You're not just someone going through the motions, living day to day without a deeper meaning. You are a creation of God. You were handcrafted, fearfully and wonderfully made. Before you were born, He knew you. He knew your strengths, your weaknesses, your quirks, your struggles. And despite all that, He still called you His own. That's your identity. But too often we let the world define us. We let labels stick to us, labels that say we're not good enough, not smart enough, not talented enough. We let our past mistakes define our future, our failures define our worth. But here's the truth: you are not your mistakes. You are not your failures. You are not the labels that people put on you. You are who God says you are. And God says you are loved. God says you are chosen. God says you are His. That's where your identity lies. Not in what you do, not in what you have, and not in what people think of you. Your worth doesn't come from the applause or the opinions of others. It comes from the fact that you are a child of the Most High. You've got to know that deep down in your soul. Because if you don't, you'll always be searching for validation, always trying to prove yourself. But when you know who you are, when you stand firm in your identity, no one can shake you. Life may try to knock you down, but you'll get back up because you know who you are. People may doubt you, criticize you, try to tear you down, but it won't faze you because you know who you are. And when you know your identity, you walk differently. You speak differently. You make decisions that align with your purpose, not with other people's expectations. So stop trying to fit into a mold that was never made for you. Stop letting other people define your value. You are royalty. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You have a divine identity that no one can take from you. Walk in it. Own it. Because when you know who you are, you unlock the potential that's been inside you all along. You are more than you realize. You are exactly who God created you to be. The road you're walking is not going to be easy. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Anybody who told you it would be lied to you. Life isn't a smooth, straight path laid out in front of you where everything just falls into place without a challenge. No. It's full of twists, turns, uphill battles, and sometimes gut-wrenching detours that make you question everything. But let me tell you this, the struggle, the pain, the hard times, they're part of the journey. They're not a sign you're on the wrong path. They're proof that you're walking a path that's worth it. When you step into your purpose, when you start pursuing God's plan for your life, don't think for a second that it's going to be a walk in the park. There will be obstacles. There will be moments where you feel like you can't go any further, moments where the weight of the world is pressing down on you. People will doubt you, circumstances will try to break you, and sometimes it'll feel like you're fighting just to keep your head above water. That's the reality. But here's what you need to know. The difficulty isn't there to destroy you. It's there to build you. Every challenge, every setback, every moment of doubt is shaping you into the person you need to become. God didn't promise you an easy journey. He promised to be with you through it. He promised to give you strength when you feel weak, to give you wisdom when you feel lost, and to lift you up when you've got nothing left in the tank. You see, it's in the struggle that you grow. It's in the difficult moments that you find out what you're really made of. When life knocks you down, it's the getting back up that makes you stronger. And when you push through the obstacles, when you keep going, even when it seems impossible, that's where you find your breakthrough. That's where you find out just how resilient, just how powerful you really are. There will be times when you question why things are so hard. Why does it feel like the odds are stacked against you? Why does it seem like you're always facing resistance? But let me remind you, resistance builds strength. You can't grow without it. Diamonds are formed under pressure, and steel is forged in the fire. So when the road gets tough, don't curse the process. Don't give up. Trust that the fire you're walking through is refining you, making you into something stronger, something better, something unbreakable. And when you face those moments of doubt, because you will remember that you're not alone on this journey. God didn't bring you this far to abandon you now. He's walking with you every step of the way. He's not just watching from a distance. He's in the trenches with you, guiding you, strengthening you, even when you can't see it. The road may be rough, but you are equipped for this. You've got everything you need inside you to make it through. So embrace the challenges. Embrace the struggle. Because the truth is, the easy road won't take you anywhere worth going. It's the hard road that leads to greatness. It's the hard road that shapes you into the person God created you to be. And when you look back, you'll realize that every obstacle, every painful moment was preparing you for something greater. You'll realize that the struggle wasn't a curse, it was a blessing in disguise. Fear, it's a powerful thing. It creeps into your mind, whispers in your ear, and tells you everything you can't do, everything you'll never be. It tries to paralyze you, hold you back, make you second guess every step you take. Fear has a way of making your world smaller, shrinking your dreams, and convincing you that what lies ahead is too big, too difficult, too impossible. But here's the thing, faith is stronger than fear. Faith is the belief in things unseen. It's the trust that God is working on your behalf, even when the path isn't clear. It's knowing that no matter how uncertain the road, no matter how big the obstacles, He's got you. Faith says, even though I don't have all the answers, even though I don't know how this will turn out, I trust in the one who does. And that's what you've got to hold on to when fear tries to grip your heart trust. But let's be real for a second. Fear is loud. It'll shout at you when you're trying to take that leap of faith. It'll tell you you're going to fail. You're not qualified. You're not enough, and it'll seem convincing because fear always plays on the worst case scenarios. Fear thrives on what ifs. What if you don't make it? What if things don't work out? What if you're not as good as you think you are? But faith doesn't need all the answers. Faith doesn't need to know the outcome. Faith says, what if God shows up in a way I can't even imagine? Faith says, what if this is part of a bigger plan, a greater purpose? Faith looks fear in the eye and says, I may not see the whole staircase, but I'm taking the first step anyway. You've got to choose. Every single day, you've got to decide whether you're going to live by faith or live by fear. Are you going to let fear stop you from walking in the direction God's calling you? Are you going to let fear keep you from the opportunities, the dreams, the purpose that's waiting for you on the other side of your doubt? Or are you going to step out in faith, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it scares you, even when you don't feel ready? Let me tell you something. Every great move of God in your life will require faith. Not the kind of faith that's comfortable, not the kind of faith that keeps you in your safe zone, but the kind of faith that pushes you out into the deep, where you've got no choice but to trust Him. That's where you see the miracles happen. That's where you see doors open that no one else could open. That's where you discover strength you didn't even know you had. Fear is always going to be there. It's always going to try to knock on the door. But here's the secret: fear only has the power you give it. If you let it in, if you let it control your decisions, it'll keep you stuck. But if you choose faith, if you choose to trust in God's promises, fear loses its grip. It may still be there lurking in the background, but it can't stop you. Faith doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means you don't let it stop you. It means you move forward in spite of it. You say, yes, I'm scared, but I'm still going. You say, yes, this is bigger than me, but I serve a God who is bigger than this. Faith is stepping out into the unknown, believing that even though you don't know what's next, God does. And if He's called you to it, He will bring you through it. So today I challenge you, choose faith. Don't let fear rob you of your destiny. Don't let it keep you from the greatness that's inside you. When fear says you can't, let faith rise up and say, with God, all things are possible, because they are. You've got everything you need: faith, courage, and a God who's already gone ahead of you. Now, all you've got to do is walk in it. Step forward, not because you're unafraid, but because your faith is stronger than your fear. Obedience. It's not always a word we want to hear, is it? It's not glamorous, it's not flashy, but let me tell you, it's powerful. Obedience is where real transformation happens. It's the key to unlocking everything God has for you. And the truth is, if you're going to walk in the fullness of His plan for your life, you've got to learn how to walk in obedience. Not just when it's convenient, not just when it's easy, but even when it's tough, especially when it's tough. You see, obedience isn't about following a set of rules. It's about trust. It's about saying, God, I may not understand why you're asking me to do this, but I trust you. It's about surrendering your will, your plans, your timing, and saying, Lord, not my will, but yours be done. That's obedience. It's aligning your steps with His direction, even when you don't have all the answers, even when it doesn't make sense. And here's the thing: obedience often requires you to go against the grain. It'll require you to do things that feel uncomfortable, things that stretch you. It might mean letting go of something you thought you needed, something you thought was part of your plan. It might mean stepping into a situation that scares you, stepping into uncertainty where you don't know how it's going to work out. But when you obey, when you follow God's lead, even when it's hard, you're saying, God, I trust that your way is better than my way. I trust that you see what I can't see. Obedience is what separates those who hear God's voice from those who walk in His power. You can know what God wants for you, but until you start walking in obedience to it, nothing changes. It's not enough to hear the call. You've got to answer it. You've got to move. You've got to act on what He's placed in your heart. But here's the part no one likes to talk about: obedience will cost you. It might cost you comfort. It might cost you relationships. It might cost you opportunities that seem good on the surface, but aren't aligned with God's purpose for you. And that's where the challenge comes in. Because sometimes obedience means giving up what looks good now for what God has planned later. It means trusting that what He has for you is better than anything you could put together for yourself. The road of obedience is not always glamorous. It's not always praised by the world. In fact, sometimes people won't understand why you're doing what you're doing. They'll question you. They'll doubt you. They might even mock you. But you're not walking for their approval. You're walking for God's. You're not living for the applause of people. You're living for the approval of the one who created you, the one who knows you better than anyone else. When you walk in obedience, you're saying, God, I trust your timing. I trust your process. And it's in that place of obedience where God starts to open doors that no man can shut. It's where you start to see miracles, breakthroughs, and favor in ways you never expected. It's not that the path becomes easy, but it becomes blessed. It becomes purposeful. Every step you take in obedience brings you closer to His promises. And here's the beauty of it. God isn't looking for perfection in your obedience. He knows we're going to stumble. He knows we're going to get it wrong sometimes. But He's looking for a heart that's willing, a heart that's surrendered, a heart that says, Lord, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm going to follow you anyway. I don't know how this is going to work out, but I trust that you do. When you walk in obedience, you step into alignment with God's will. You position yourself to receive His blessings, His provision, and His guidance. And even when the path is hard, even when the road is long, there's peace in knowing that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, walking in the will of one who knows the end from the beginning. So walk in obedience, not just when it's easy, not just when it feels good, but every day, in every decision, in every step. Because when you do, you'll find that God's plan for you is greater than anything you could have imagined. You'll find that His way, though it may cost you something in the short term, will lead to a life that's richer, fuller, and more meaningful than you ever thought possible. There's a season for everything in life. Sometimes you're on the mountaintop and everything's going your way. Other times you're in the valley and it feels like nothing is working out. But here's the truth. Every season has a purpose. Every single one. Whether you're in a season of growth, a season of waiting, or a season of struggle, God is doing something in you and through you right where you are. You've got to learn to embrace the season you're in, not rush through it, not resist it, but embrace it. You see, we live in a world that's always pushing us to move faster, to get to the next level, to reach the next goal. It's easy to get caught up in thinking, if I could just get through this, if I could just get to the next thing, then I'll be happy, then I'll feel fulfilled. But let me tell you, there's something you need to learn right here, right now. There's a reason God has you in this season. You may not see it yet, you may not understand it, but there's a purpose for it. Maybe you're in a season of waiting. That's one of the hardest places to be, isn't it? Waiting on a breakthrough. Waiting on an answer, waiting on a dream to come to life. It can feel like you're stuck, like nothing is happening. But let me tell you, God does some of His best work in the waiting. He's preparing you. He's building something in you that's going to be needed in the next season. Waiting isn't wasted. It's a time for God to strengthen your faith, to refine your character, to shape you into who you need to be for what's coming. Or maybe you're in a season of struggle. It feels like everything is going wrong. You're carrying burdens you didn't ask for, facing challenges you never saw coming. But let me remind you of something. The struggle is where strength is born. You don't grow on the mountaintop, you grow in the valley. You don't build resilience in easy times, you build it in the fire. Embrace the struggle because God is using it to refine you. He's not letting you go through it for no reason. He's building something in you that's going to make you stronger, more equipped, more prepared for what's ahead. And then there are seasons of growth, seasons where things are going well, where doors are opening, where you feel like you're finally stepping into your purpose. Embrace those seasons too. Be grateful for them. But don't get comfortable. Growth seasons are meant to propel you forward, not make you complacent. When things are going well, don't just sit back, keep pressing. Keep growing, keep seeking God's direction for the next step. Because every season, even the good ones, are preparing you for what's next. But no matter what season you're in, whether it's one of waiting, struggle, or growth, God is there. He's with you in every moment, in every high, and in every low. You've got to trust that He knows what He's doing. You've got to trust that the season you're in isn't just about what's happening to you, but about what's happening in you. He's shaping you, He's stretching you, and He's positioning you for something greater. Too often we try to rush through the season we're in. We want the breakthrough now, the blessing now, the answer now. But growth takes time. Healing takes time. Preparation takes time. And if you rush the process, you'll miss out on what God is trying to teach you, what He's trying to do in you. Embrace where you are. Lean into it. Learn from it. Because God is faithful, and when the time is right, He'll move you into the next season. But for now, trust that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. So don't despise the season you're in. Don't wish it away. Embrace it. Because every season, whether it feels like a blessing or a burden, is part of God's plan. It's shaping you, growing you, preparing you for what's next. And when you look back, you'll see that even in the seasons you didn't understand, God was working all things together for your good. Let me tell you something, your life is not just about you. You weren't put on this earth just to take up space, just to get through life for yourself. You were created to make a difference, to be a light to others. In a world full of darkness, full of negativity, confusion, and pain, you're called to stand out, to be a beacon of hope, of love, of kindness. Being a light isn't about having all the answers or living a perfect life. It's about reflecting the love, grace, and truth of God to everyone around you. Think about it, light has power. No matter how dark a room is, the moment you turn on a light, the darkness has to flee. It can't stay in the presence of light. That's what you are supposed to be. In the middle of a world that sometimes feels overwhelming, in a culture that can be divisive, hateful, or just plain tough, you've got to be the one who shines. Your words, your actions, your presence, they all carry the potential to bring light into someone's life. But being a light isn't always easy. There will be times when you feel like you've got nothing left to give. Times when the weight of the world is heavy on your shoulders. And it's in those moments you might wonder, how can I be a light when I'm struggling myself? But here's the beauty of it. Your light doesn't come from you. It comes from God. You don't have to have it all figured out to be a light to someone else. Sometimes just showing up, being kind, being present, and speaking a word of encouragement can be the light someone else needs in their darkest moment. You never know what someone else is going through. You never know how much a simple act of kindness, a smile, or a listening ear can mean to someone who feels like they're walking through their own personal storm. You don't have to preach a sermon. You don't have to have a big platform. Your life, your everyday choices can speak volumes. When you walk in love, when you treat people with respect, when you offer a helping hand or an encouraging word, you're reflecting God's light in ways you might not even realize. But let me be real with you, being a light means sometimes going against the flow. It means not joining in when others are tearing someone down. It means refusing to spread gossip, refusing to let bitterness take root in your heart. It means choosing love when it's easier to choose hate, choosing forgiveness when it's easier to hold a grudge. That's what sets you apart. When people see that you handle life differently, when they see that you respond to challenges, pain, and setbacks with grace and hope, they'll notice something different about you. And that difference is your light. Being a light isn't about having a perfect life where nothing goes wrong. It's about letting God's love shine through you in spite of the challenges. People don't need to see perfection, they need to see authenticity. They need to see someone who's walking through the same struggles they are, but still holding on to hope, still trusting in something greater, still loving others in the process. That's what it means to be a light. And let me remind you of this, your light isn't just for the people who treat you well. It's for the difficult people too. It's for the people who test your patience, the people who might hurt you, the ones who seem impossible to love. Because that's when your light shines the brightest, when you love the unlovable, when you show grace to those who don't deserve it. That's when people start to see that there's something deeper going on, that your light is coming from a source greater than yourself. So let your light shine. Don't hide it. Don't dim it to fit in. The world needs what you have to offer. Every kind word, every act of love, every moment of grace, it matters. You don't have to be loud or flashy to make an impact. Just be consistent. Be loving. Be the kind of person who, when others look at you, they feel a little bit of hope, a little bit of peace, a little bit of God's love. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how much you accomplish, how much money you make, or how many people know your name. It's about how many lives you touched, how many people felt encouraged, seen, and loved because you chose to be a light in a dark world. You were created for this. So go out there, shine bright, and let God's light flow through you into every corner of the world you touch.